Hey guys, my name's Alana. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I post mental health videos and I also post vlogs and sometimes lifestyle videos. If you're interested in that content, please subscribe, press the thumbs up for this video as it would really help me out. I have done a lot of videos in the past on bipolar disorder. And I thought that today I would do a video talking about how I personally manage living with bipolar disorder and how if you've recently been diagnosed or if you think you have bipolar, if you know somebody else, these are just some tips and just like useful practical advice of things that you can do to help yourself stay well and even like maybe minimize episodes and stuff like that. Disclaimer, like, I'm no doctor or psychiatrist. I'm a person with lived experience and I have studied mental health and I'm currently studying a diploma of counseling to be a counselor, but I am not a doctor or psychiatrist. So obviously what I say is personalized to me, but I'm going to try to make it quite like relatable, and hopefully you will find this helpful. So if you're interested, keep on watching. The main treatment for bipolar disorder, whether it is bipolar 1, 2, you might have, different types of bipolar. There are more than one type of bipolar disorder, which isn't as commonly known. I have bipolar type 2. It has been in debate for a very long time since I was diagnosed, whether it was 1 or 2. I have mentioned this in other videos. It can be quite hard, I think, sometimes to figure out, like physicians to figure out whether it's 1 or 2. And specifically with me, I'm diagnosed with other mental health conditions like borderline personality disorder, which also makes it even harder for them sometimes to figure it out. So I am diagnosed with bipolar 2, but I do experience what I would consider more mania type symptoms now, but when I was younger, I was experiencing more of what would be traits of bipolar 2. So I started experiencing symptoms when I was around, I would say, 13 to 14. I started to get, I have a whole video on this, but I'm going to quickly just go through it just so I can explain some ways of how I've kind of adapted over time. But I started experiencing symptoms when I was around 13 or 14, and it started off with mainly depressive episodes, and by the time I got to 14, these depressive episodes would last for sometimes up to 3 to 4 months. It was quite a long time, and then I would have short periods of maybe like 4 to 5 days where I would get hypermania, like symptoms that go along with what you would see with like hypermania in bipolar 2. So I started to experience this, and it would, cycle throughout the years. It kept going, very, similar symptoms each time, and it just kept going on. And as I became older, it started to become more drawn out and more frequent and more noticeable, I think. So I didn't actually really have much of an understanding of what bipolar was. I really didn't understand, and I never thought to myself that that's what I had, just because I really didn't have any like education on mental health growing up, and I wasn't able to get into like services until I was an adult and I was able to take myself to a counselor, thinking I just had, honestly, I thought I just had depression. And I actually have a video on how I was diagnosed with bipolar. It explains the whole story. It's a very long process, so if you want to check that out, it is linked in my playlist. I think it's called bipolar disorder or mental health. I have a whole videos based around this, but in short, my symptoms started to get worse as I got older, and by the time I was around like 18 or 19, it started to become more and more like invasive, and it started happening the episode would started to lengthen and happen more and more. So in August of 2019, I was diagnosed originally with bipolar 1, then it was assessed by a different person, it was changed to 2, and then over the years there's still kind of been a little bits of confusion about whether it was 1 or 2, but regardless of it, it is bipolar. So I'm just going to be saying bipolar in this instance, but you can relate to whatever type of bipolar, because I know there are more types of bipolar. I just, right now, I can't think of the other names. So I'm going to start off with depression symptoms and how you can manage that. When it comes to like depressive episodes, it can be really hard because especially if you're diagnosed with bipolar 2, when I was a teenager and I was experiencing symptoms of bipolar 2, I was having more of the depressive episodes. So I would, have very frequent, like I would have depressive episodes, like I said, that would last 3 months, sometimes even up to 4 months. And it would be just constant low mood, dissociating, no energy. I wanted to just sleep. Like I would sleep. Well, I couldn't like sleep in because I had school, but like at school I'd feel like so out of it, so just like foggy in the head, and just like all the stuff that comes along with depression, really negative thoughts, like thoughts of suicide, self-harming behaviors, which was kind of more linked to having BPD, but it's not really like a trait of bipolar, but obviously you can still struggle with that. So I started to experience obviously just like symptoms of depression, right? And just having no motivation and be very emotional, just those type of things. And I never knew like really how to get myself out of this, and so it would last, and I was unmedicated, and it would last for months and months, and it was really, really horrible. And waking up each day was just like, oh my gosh, another day of this. So now when I am feeling myself go into a depressive episode, which I actually have a lot less now that I'm medicated, which I will talk about medication in a minute, but I want to talk about some ways that you can manage without medication, like regardless of medication. So some ways that I manage bipolar depression is to make myself at least get up in the morning and get changed out of pajamas into like an outfit that's comfortable, because I feel like if you stay in those like pajamas, you're gonna feel even worse, and you're gonna feel like you look worse, and you're gonna feel worse. It doesn't even matter if you didn't have a shower. Just changing into a different pair of like clothes can make a huge difference. Like for me, I've always, like, even when I feel depressed, I make sure I get up and I get changed. And I try to go and have like a coffee, or I try to go and have like a cup of tea or something. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but just doing something small. And then after I do that, if like I've had that and I got changed and I still feeling really, really bad, I allow myself to go back to bed, or I allow myself to go and watch TV all day. And that's okay. But I try really hard to do that, because sometimes just by changing and having like a cup of tea, if you can, like, brush your teeth or spray some perfume on, something small like that, that can give you like the little bit of energy and motivation to maybe think, oh, that wasn't actually so hard. Maybe I can try to go and have breakfast, or maybe I could try to do some stretching, or, go and sit outside for a bit. Like, it doesn't have to be like this major thing, but it can just be something small. Another thing that has really, really helped me is doing like little art activities that are very simple. You don't have to think about it. So I really like diamond art or coloring in. Those are things that I really like to do. And you don't need to think about it. And it's so easy to do. You can do it in your bed as well. That is what I really like. I've had times where I would just sit in my bed and do the coloring in and listen to a podcast and then go back to sleep later. So that's another tip. Obviously, there are other things like going for a walk, but I understand that sometimes like that is just not something you could do, because you just feel so depressed and you don't have any energy, and you don't want to go outside or whatever. So that's totally I totally can understand that. But for me, going for a walk does actually help, or even just sitting outside. So I like to do that. Another thing that really has helped to me is that I have a lot of animals, so I have to actually get up to look after them. So I can't, like, I know I have to get up. That has been a big motivator for me because I know my cat is gonna meow, she wants her food, my guinea pigs need to be fed, stuff like that. They need to be looked after. And so it gives me something to kind of get up for in the morning and to look after, which gives me a sense of, feeling a little bit better that I am contributing and looking after something. That has really helped me and made a massive difference with my mental health. So those are some of the things, for depression that I would say has helped me a lot. Then there is things like medication, which is normally, the first type of treatment when it comes to bipolar disorder, since it is more of a chemical thing. There's not any therapies designed for bipolar because it's not a behavioral problem or a thinking pattern, like a negative thinking style. Like it isn't caused by cognitive distortions or things like that. It's caused by a chemical, something going wrong in the brain. And so often medication is what's needed to kind of correct that. And, medication is always a personal choice and you have to weigh up your options. I know that some people who do have bipolar 2 aren't on medications, but when you're getting into things like intense mania, really, really bad depression where you're suicidal, things like that, or it's just lasting ridiculously long amounts of times, like months and months, medication is definitely something that you probably should consider. And for me, meditation has made the biggest difference. I did do little bits of management through therapy, but to be honest, nothing worked like medication did because it is a chemical thing. So medications like antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, antidepressants are things that are often used. Obviously, with antidepressants, I talked about this in my how I got diagnosed with bipolar video. Antidepressants can trigger mania though and hypermania, so you have to be really careful about that. And it just depends with your doctor. Obviously, you always have to talk to your doctor. Like, never just stop and start things and muck around with stuff without your doctor. I mean, I am really bad at this. I often, when I'm manic or hypomanic, I stop taking my medication, which is really bad, but it's kind of a symptom of the mania. It's not something that I would do normally. It only happens when I'm in that manic episode, and that definitely makes everything worse. So yeah, that's definitely something that try to do. So moving on to ways that I manage mania and hypermania, I find this a lot more difficult, especially now, as I am now 22 and I actually experience sorry, that was a message coming through. I actually experience the mania and hypermania actually more frequently, I feel like, than depression. Whereas when I was a teenager and when I was a little bit younger, it was more the depression aspect that really got me. Like, I would be depressed for months. Whereas, the hypermania would last for maybe like 4 or 5 days. Whereas now, ever since I was about 20, so maybe the last 2 years, it has been more the mania, hypermania that's been causing all the problems. And is the thing that is really being medicated because it's unfortunately like just seeming to get worse. So, I don't, since being on an antidepressant that actually does work and doesn't trigger mania, it's really helped with the depression. Like, even when I do get depressed now, it is nowhere near as intense because when I was depressed without medication, I couldn't wash my hair, I wouldn't like shower as frequently, like I would wear the same thing all the time. Like, I was just an absolute mess. I was so depressed. And I literally just felt like my entire body had been hit by a truck. I couldn't like I felt like I couldn't even like move. Getting myself to appointments was just a whole thing. So it was really, really difficult. Whereas now I'm on a really good medication called venlafaxine that has helped so much. But I also have in the last 2 years started experiencing a lot more mania, hypermania than depression. So with the mania and hypermania, that one is a lot harder, I suppose, to manage for me. I don't know if other people find this as well, but like it's hard to find things to help you manage because it can be so intense. And the problem with the mania and hypomania is that you're a lot of the times you're not aware of it. Whereas with depression, you know you're depressed, like you know what I mean. But with mania and hypomania, often I don't even know I'm manic until someone mentions it or tells me. I don't pick up on it. I used to have more insight, and now I find that it's becoming more manic-like, and just really I lose insight as to I don't even think there's anything going on. Like I don't even question the behaviors I'm doing. And it's strange because even though you've had those episodes before, you think you'd recognize it, but you really don't. So having somebody else around you who knows you really well, if you live with a partner, if you have a close friend or somebody who does check in on you regularly, that's really helpful because they can then say, hey, I think your behavior, I've noticed this and this. Are you taking your medication? Or do you need me to go pick up your medication? Or do you need me to go to the doctors with you? Obviously, it's really bad. You need to go to emergency. Or if you have a psychiatrist that you're able to contact, you really need to do that because it can become very dangerous. But, you know, obviously you need to have people around you that can pick up on that, because if you're like me and you feel like you lose insight, that's going to be helpful, because otherwise how are you going to know? And that can be dangerous because you can be you can put yourself in situations that are harmful. So with the mania, some practical ways apart from medication that I have used is using like just art. And I mean, when I get manic, I'm very like suddenly have these like I'm very artistic, but it's just like over the top, like very just doing pumping out like loads of artworks and just like weird, but it's not. I always say it's kind of weird. Like if you look at my journals, my written journals, if you look at poetry that I've written, if you look at any of my artworks, my collaging, you can tell I'm manic because it's chaotic, it's weird, it's strange, it doesn't make sense. Like it's not like I have a particular style of art that I do and it just doesn't line up with it. And it's just very weird. If you would look at my journals and the things I'm thinking and writing, and it doesn't even make sense, to be honest. So, you know, but even though I'm in that mood, doing that art and stuff actually keeps me occupied. My room becomes like a bomb has hit it, like there is stuff everywhere. I'm a very, very clean person, but when I'm manic, that's another thing. My room becomes like, you would think that I literally pull everything out of my room, just redecorate, like the whole shebang. You know, but doing art is a really good outlet because it's better for me to be doing that all night than me going and driving dangerously at 1 a.m. without anyone knowing, or without my parents knowing and giving them a heart attack, and then, you know, things like that will happen, or whatever else that you get into you do, or spending all your money, right? Because that is another thing, spending all of your money, getting into debt, which is a very real thing. I have like experience not going into debt, but spending ridiculous amounts of money, and I don't have much money as it is as someone on disability pension. So, you know, what I'm saying is immerse yourself into things that are an outlet. So if you're feeling artistic, go and do art for hours. If you're going to stay up all night, stay up all night, you know, maybe working on an assignment if you can. I mean, I can't really work on assignments when I'm manic, but doing something, go play your instruments, go do something that at least is safer than you going out partying, drinking, you know, using substances, going out and having, you know, unsafe sex, or getting yourself into reckless situation with driving or cars or whatever whatever you're doing, or going into debt, you know. wandering around at night, doing who knows what. I mean, honestly, it's when you're manic, everything seems like a normal, smart idea when it really isn't. And that's the whole dangerous thing of it. So really, that's the only thing I have to say for practically managing mania, because to be honest, I don't have any other answers. I don't have anything else that actually helps me. That is it. Apart from my medication. My medication is like the lifeline. It's the savior, because without that, I am very stuffed. I will become very unwell. So, things like antipsychotics, and mood stabilizers, but specifically like antipsychotics for me have been the thing that seems to like kind of eventually stop the mania, or at least bring it down a bit, or stop myself. Medication for me is the thing that stops me from ending up in hospital, or stops me from completely going completely psychotic, where I am just almost out of reality, I suppose. I think the thing with bipolar is that the thing I've learned, because I often stop taking my medication because I think I have a lot of psychotic thoughts and hallucinations and voices telling me that it's poisoning me. A very common one for me is that I get voices telling me that medication is poisoning me, that the doctors are trying to persuade me in some way to do something, and that's why. Or if I take it, that something's gonna happen, or whatever else, hallucinations telling me things, right? So and then I stop taking it, and then it's been a while, and then it's like gets worse. And obviously lack of sleep, like sleeping 3 hours a night or not at all, or whatever you're doing, that's going to cause problems with your brain as well, can make hallucinations and stuff a lot worse. So medication really is like gold standard management. I don't really have any other practical ways. And I think the unfortunate thing with bipolar is that it can unfortunately get worse. And the problem is, like, even though I don't like taking medication, manic episodes is kind of like seizures. They can actually damage your brain. They can cause a lot of damage. The more manic episodes you have, the worse it gets. The more time you spend in psychosis or experiencing those type of symptoms, it actually damages your brain. And sometimes that can be irreversible. And without medication, well, for me, like, my episodes would just last longer and longer and get more and more ramped up. It doesn't calm down. It's like just keeps going. The less sleep I have, the worse it's gonna get. The more hyper and the more agitated and stuff. And it can be really scary because I mean, I don't know if other people experience this, but for me with bipolar, I'm like always got this thing in the back of my mind where I'm like, am I gonna one day just have like a really bad manic episode? Am I just gonna like completely lose touch with reality altogether? Like, am I just gonna completely go nuts? Because it can feel like that. Am I gonna like just do something that's gonna completely stop up my life? It can be like that because you just don't know what you're gonna do, and that's the hardest thing, is that you can't predict episodes. I mean, some people can. I can't. You can't predict episodes. Sometimes you don't even know you're having one. You can be in the one you don't know. So it's like, I really have to rely on other people and like seeing professionals so they can tell me what they notice. That's why if you live on your own, I mean, I've had friends who are diagnosed with it and they live on their own, and it hasn't been very good because, they've ended up in hospital because they were out at like whatever time in the morning doing something very strange. Like things that come along with bipolar. I mean, if you have it, you probably know weird things that you end up doing that just are very like, what the heck. But, it can be like really scary not knowing what you're going to do. And it's not you, it's the illness. It's what the illness is doing. And if you're someone who experiences like psychosis as well, like hallucinations and like thoughts of grandiose, or thinking that you're, when it gets really bad and you think that maybe you're, I always have this weird thing where I think it's tied in with dissociation for me, but like if I'm manic, I start to get voices telling me that I'm dead. And then that makes it worse with the medication. And then, I have voices telling me to jump in front of cars, to do all sorts of things, right? And so stuff like that is, you can't really like live your life when you're in that. And it's not nice for me, and it's not nice for anyone else, because it's not only, when you live with this, it's not like just you that gets affected, it's other people, because everyone else around you is obviously going to be concerned. And not, if they don't know where you are, you might disappear for a few months or a few weeks and no one knows where you went. That can be very difficult. Maybe you're in debt. Like, they're very big problems that can occur. Like, hallucinations might tell you to go jump off a building because you might think you can fly, and then you go jump off a building. These are things that can happen, and like, that's very extreme. That's like very like psychotic, intense mania. But some people do have that. Some people, that's the thing with bipolar. It's like autism, it's on a spectrum. And, each episode can be different. It's never going to be the same. You're going to have different things. But you really want to intervene. The point that I'm trying to make is like, you want to intervene before it starts to get to that really bad point where you have lost all logic and ability to make decisions, and you need to be hospitalized. That's not fun. And, so yeah, medication, really, really helpful. For me, the only thing that has not fixed, because obviously I still have episodes, but it's lessened the episodes. It's made them less intense. The mania, I mean, it's still not great, but at least I don't end up in a hospital, right? So that's kind of what it does for me. And my medication, like if I have a manic episode, like I had one at the beginning of this year, like January, February. I actually have videos on this channel. I should do a reaction to them because it's probably very, very bad. I have no idea what even I did in those videos. You could probably tell I'm manic. I think even like the editing looks manic. Looks a bit weird. It's probably because I was manic. And I changed my hair. I think that was when I dyed my hair pink. So, everyone's going to experience different symptoms, but for me, if I'm starting to get really, really manic, the only thing that helps the hallucinations and those type of things is going on higher levels of like antipsychotics, and just maybe I've been in hospital before to try to like they literally just pumped me with antipsychotics because that was the only thing that worked. So yeah, those are my tips. This video was long, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to like talk about that because I feel like people maybe don't have anyone they can relate to. And when I first got diagnosed with bipolar, I had nobody in my life who had it. I didn't know anyone. I had nobody to talk to about it. I was just getting a billion different opinions. I mean, everyone was saying that it was bipolar, but I had like all these different professionals' opinions, and it freaked me out for a long time, not knowing, like, I was like, what, oh my gosh, like, what, how did I do that? Like, when I would look back at episodes and what I did, and I'd be like, what in the world? Like, what was I thinking? That's so embarrassing, because it can be embarrassing. Like, you can do things and act in ways that are very, like, not like you, and to be honest, some things are very embarrassing, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But that's just what happens, and I know that I don't have control of this. But I wanted to make this video because, yeah, I feel like there's not much content online, not much on YouTube. Bipolar is really not well understood. People don't understand what it is, and they think it's BPD. They think that you just get mood swings every 5 minutes, and the way the media portrays it is absolutely terrible. I am very upset with the way the media has portrayed bipolar. It's so bad. It's not accurate. It's not medically accurate. It's always based around females, which it affects men as well. And the other problem is that they only ever make it seem very, very, very extreme. look, you probably know someone who has this, and you probably don't even know. The reason is because people can go years without having episodes or symptoms. You can be diagnosed and not have an episode for like 4 years because medication works, or because your brain just decided that. Like, you don't know what your brain's gonna do. And it is a very real thing. Like, there's brain scans that can prove that what happens when people are manic. They've done brain scans, and it's very different to what your brain looks like normally. So the point is that I just wanted to make this video to make a more realistic perspective of what bipolar is, and to show that it's not a spectrum, and that we are all going to experience it differently. You can have bipolar 2, I can have bipolar 2, you can have one, I can have one, and have completely different experiences and different symptoms, and just completely different experiences with medication too. So I hope this helped you. If you have bipolar, comment down below. If you know someone, share this video, and yeah, we'd love to hear your views and opinions. So thank you for watching the video. Subscribe, like, and follow my channel for more mental health content. I have a whole playlist on self-harm videos and a bunch of other things. I've made a lot of videos on bipolar, so please check that out. And thank you guys so much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.